Welcome back to the channel, everybody. Back with another episode tonight. Going to change it up a little bit, though. Going to start a new playlist tonight that I'm excited about, and it'll be all related to programming. And so a bit of a deviation from the networking labs and challenges we've been doing over the past couple weeks. I'm having a lot of fun making these videos and just exploring a lot of this content. So anyway, the language. Okay. So what is going to happen with this playlist? I'd like to just go through a course on programming, not a theoretical course, not a college course, nothing with a textbook. And I'll explain what the course is in a moment. I'm sure you can see and maybe start to understand what kind of course it would be based on the screen here. Or actually, I haven't edited this video yet, so maybe you can't see the screen yet. I don't know. I'm still getting a handle on orchestrating a YouTube video, but I am learning a lot there too. So I'd like to go through a programming course where we learn about and how to program using a specific programming language with you all, and make no assumptions about what anyone might know or not know, or how technical or not, as though none of us know anything. And I'll explain the concepts in a way that I might have benefited from had someone explained them to me. I'll try to simplify things and just make it fun and palatable, and I think everyone will enjoy it, anybody who's watching this. So if you take a look at the screen now, it should be up. We're going to use what are called Koans. Koans is a popular, I would say, I think, framework. It's popular with me. Popular framework, or a series, maybe is the better term, for learning to program. So there aren't just Koans for Python. There are Koans for Ruby or C or Java. All of the programming languages, I think at this point, I assume, have a Koans series. And first things first, like, what is a Koan? It actually is a historical term. So in the context of Zen Buddhism, a koan is a paradoxical question, statement, or story used to help students break free from logical thinking and achieve sudden enlightenment. And it's interesting that they say break free from logical thinking, because I think we do a lot of logical thinking in programming, but it's like a little quiz or like a little challenge to lead you on your way to enlightenment. And the programming Koans series for Python and Ruby, etc., really sort of live in that, I don't know if folklore is the word, but live in that vibe of the Zen Buddhism reaching enlightenment, you've reached enlightenment sort of vibe. And just to read through this next definition here, a koan is a paradoxical question, statement, or story used in Zen Buddhist teaching to help bring students out of specific forms of thought and into a realm of pure awareness. The aim is to help break them away from logical thought and enter an intuitive state where answers come from within. Very interesting. Yeah, just a clever thing that the creators of these programming Koans did. All right, so what am I doing? Python Koans. We want to go back to Python Koans. Okay. And we're going to go to this one. All right, so first things first. Like, I'm not sure we're going to really do much programming today, because we're going to talk about a few things and kind of try to get set up. But first things first, this is GitHub. GitHub is a place where developers host or put their code up for you to use and to read and to fix and to comment on. It's kind of like a social network for developers to talk about and share code that they've written. And so we would like to use code that this developer, Greg Malcolm, has written, and it is a publicly available repository of code called Python Koans. And so typically when you land onto GitHub, you'll probably need to scroll past the file tree as you see here, and you'll get into what is known as the README. And in the README, you're going to typically get instructions on how to install and run and work with the code in question. So Python code, Koans, one-click installation for a developer workspace or opening Gitpod. Python Koans is part of EdgeCase's Ruby Koans, which can be found there. So Ruby, also another very popular programming language. Python Codes is an interactive tutorial for learning the Python programming languages by making tests pass. Most tests are fixed by filling the missing parts of assert functions. Okay, we're going to get into all that, which can be fixed by replacing the underscore part with the appropriate code. So we're going to get into that. Occasionally, you will encounter some failing tests that are already filled out. In these cases, you will need to finish implementing some source code to progress. For example, there's an exercise for writing some code that will tell you if a triangle is equilateral, isosceles, or scalene. As well as a great way to learn some Python, it is also a good way to get a taste of test-driven development. I'll do a 1-minute commentary on test-driven development. Test-driven development is, if we want to, let's think of a good example. The checkout button. If we want to implement a checkout button, we've got a website and it's a store and it has everything. The customer can find items, select them, put them in their cart, and get all the way to the end when they're ready to click the button that performs the checkout and they purchase the thing. When we develop using the paradigm known as test-driven development, or the approach known as test-driven development, in that scenario, we would write a bunch, not necessarily a bunch, we would write tests that define how we expect or want the checkout button to behave. We would write those tests first and use them to describe the behavior of the thing that we're building. And then we would build the thing to match those behaviors so that when a behavior that we defined, if it doesn't exist, if it's the thing that we're building isn't doing that behavior yet, the test will fail. But when the thing that we're building starts doing the thing that the test defines, or that the behavior, or that the behavior the test defines, something like that, it passes. So our goal would be to implement a bunch of failing tests that describe the behavior of a thing that we want to build. And then when we build that thing, as we're building it, the tests start passing as we build in the functionality that we expect our thing to do. And when all the tests are passing, we know that we have designed the thing or built the thing that does everything we want. As an example, the checkout button. It should take money from my account as the user. Okay, that's a good test. Another test. The checkout button should not take money from anyone else's account if I am the user, if I'm the purchaser. That's a good test. The checkout button should put only the items in my cart into the order for purchase. That's a good test. So we build all those things. We write all those tests to define the behavior that we want, and then we implement the thing that we want. And in Koans, that's what we're going to be doing. The Koans are just a bunch of failing tests, and they're going to describe behavior that is going to implicitly teach us about how Python works and how to write it. And by simply making those tests pass, we will be able to learn about Python and make and progress through the course and reach enlightenment. All right, so that's the little rundown on TDD. Installing Python Koans. We do want to do that. Getting started. Okay. Lots of Windows stuff. I'm just scrolling through. Getting the most. All right, so I think Python Koans is available on GitHub. All right, and I'll say this. There are going to be many ways to get this, and it just depends on what your level of comfort is. One-click installation developer workspace or opening Gitpod. I don't know much about those technologies, so that's not my first preference for installing this thing. Python Koans is available on GitHub, which is where we are right now. You can clone with Git or download the source as a zip, GZ, BZ2, different zip formats. Okay, so what I am most comfortable with is cloning. And what I mean by cloning is simply pulling code that exists on GitHub down to my machine so that I can work with it and change it and manipulate it and do different things to it. So I'm borrowing or I'm accepting a copy of Greg Malcolm's program, and I'm going to bring a copy of it down to my local machine so that I can mess with it. And that's what we want to do here. So I will say this, though. In order to clone a repo, which is what we're doing when we're pulling, I'll demonstrate it in a second, which is what we will be doing, we need to have some configuration in place. So it might be better to download the zip file. And you know what? I'm just going to download the zip file. All right. So this is what you should do. Let's just download the zip file. All right. So Python Koans master zip has downloaded into my thing. And I'm going to, one moment, open it up. All right, so I've unzipped Python Koans, and that's in my downloads folder. So let me just pull up a terminal and make sure that there is nothing from work on it. One moment. Shell, new window. All right, so let me bring this over. And now I'm going to okay, so I'm going to make a new directory called programming. I'm going to cd into programming. So I'm going into the programming directory. All right, and now I'm going to move from my downloads folder, the folder called Python Koans, master, Python Koans master. And I'm going to then move that folder here into the programming folder. So now if I do ls, I can then see that we've moved Python Koans master into the programming folder. So here's where we'll basically work from. All right, I'm going to go into Python Koans master by CDing. I'm going to list what's in there. All right, so going back to the getting started. So we've got the code locally, which is step number one. And if there are several ways to do that. You can clone, downloading the zip file, unzipping it, and then moving it into your workspace, wherever that is probably the most straightforward way. Now, as far as starting to run it, we've installed Python Koans. Okay, aside from downloading or checking the latest, you need to install the Python interpreter. At this time of writing, we support Python 3. Okay, yeah, so now this is another little thing we need to do to get started. You may not have Python. You probably do, but the way to check is you can just type Python and say -- version. Maybe I don't have Python. What the heck? Python 3 -- version. All right, so I have Python 3 installed locally, and I think like on most new operating systems, it should probably be there. That's probably an assumption, but we need to run Python 3. All right, and it can be, I think, pretty much any Python 3. If I do which Python 3, it will tell me where it's located. Okay, so you want to download Python 3. So in order to do that, you can download Python from here. And let me just open this up and we'll walk through that. All right, so there are various versions available. I'm curious what I'm at. So 3.11, 3.11. So I'm still getting security fixes. So I think that's fine. Anyway, downloads, all releases. Oh, and you can even select based on your platform. So if I were to click this, it would bring down, you know what, I'll just do it. Let's get a newer version of Python. So I've downloaded that, and I'm going to double click, and this installer is going to come up. So package will install Python 3.13, macOS 10.3 or later. I'm going to say continue. Windows Ring Open SSL, blah, blah, blah. Continue. Continue. Agree. 181, install. Install. All right, so getting a new version of Python installed on my laptop. Let's let it do its thing. Be nice for this video if we just got to the point where we got everything installed and ran like the first Koan, maybe solved the very first one. All right, congratulations. Python 3.1.3 for macOS 10.3 or later was successfully installed. Now I'm curious actually if I'm even on 10.13. I should be. I can go up here to the Apple About This Mac, and I'm on 15.4. So yeah, I was way after that. All right, so I'm going to close that. We can move the Python installer to the trash. I'm going to go back to my IDE. Now I'm curious if I do Python 3 -- version, what I get. Okay, so I got it upgraded. All right, so some variant of that. All right, so go to the download site and go to downloads and then pull it down for your platform, etc. So that's getting Python. What's next? After installing Python, make sure the folder containing the Python executable is in the system path. In other words, you need to be able to run Python command from a command console. From a command console, it will be the Python 3. Okay, so as you've seen me do, run Python 3 We're going to be using this a lot. So you need to be able to, it works if you can say Python 3 dash dash version and see not an error right here, okay? Also, I didn't say what this was. This box here is what is known as a terminal. It is built into the computer, whether you're on Windows or OS X or on a Mac. It's just known as terminal. On Windows, I think it's known as DOS prompt. But this is the application you use to issue commands to the computer. I think that's probably the right way to say it, to issue commands to the computer, to tell the computer what to do in a language or in a way that is, I don't know, closer to what the computer understands. I don't even know what that means. It's just a way to communicate with the computer. All right, so basically what this is saying is like you need to be able to run Python wherever your project is, wherever you are. Okay, so if that doesn't work, if this Python 3 dash dash version doesn't work, something is wrong and you need to research it on Google. All right, so then if you have this problem, blah, 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 getting started, Jake Hibbert has created a couple of screencasts available here, or if you prefer to read from a Nix terminal or Windows command prompt, run code block ::sh, or, yeah, I don't know what the heck that means. Or Python 3 contemplate Koans. All right, so this is what we're going to do. I am not familiar with this syntax, so that's kind of new to me. Udemy. All right, so let's do that. We're going to run Python 3 contemplate Koans. Python 3 contemplate. All right, and just in case, somebody might not be aware, when you are, first of all, contemplate Koans, like I expect to be in this folder, Python Koans master that we downloaded. And so I wanted to say that I would just want to describe tab completion. So if I know that I need to interact with a folder or a file inside somewhere, I don't have to like type out its entire name or copy and paste it or anything like that. There's a little helper thing known as tab completion, where I can just do the first few and then press tab. And this is going to be the same on like any terminal, unless it's a reverse shell. And that can help move things along. All right, Python 3, so let's run it. Okay, so we got some stuff. Looks like we got some errors. I can recognize that. So users, showtop programming, Python Koans, runner, sensei, syntax warning, invalid, escape sequence, /d. Okay, so this is a bunch of errors. There's just a bunch of like cryptic, looks like Python to me. Okay, so thinking about asserts, test assert truth has damaged your karma. You have not yet reached enlightenment. Assertion error, false is not true. Please meditate on the following code. File, users, showtop, programming, Python Koans master, Koans, about asserts.py, line 17, in test assert truth. Self assert true, false. This should be true. You have completed 0% Koans, and 0 out of 37 lessons. You are now 304 Koans and 37 lessons away from reaching enlightenment. Beautiful is better than ugly. That's interesting. All right, so that was a lot of information. Something went wrong. a test has failed. And in order to proceed, we need to make the test pass, which means we need to implement the behavior that the test expects. Only then does the test pass. And so, where do we implement that behavior? Where should we be looking? Well, it tells us. Please meditate on the following code. Here's a location that we need to go to. We need to go to this directory, which is what we are in now, to the Koans directory beneath it, to a file called aboutasserts.py. All right, now this is where I will transition over to what's known as an IDE, an integrated development environment. Now, why would I do that? It's not easy necessarily, although it can be, to work with programs in the terminal. I understand the terminal as the thing that allows you to move around and move files around and run things and just do administrative work with the computer. Whereas other programs like IDEs are meant for programming, and they have a lot of tools built in, different functions and features, almost like Excel. Like there are things that speed things along that just aren't available in the terminal. So we'll do that. It just got a different view. You could do all this here though, or in a text editor. You could go from, we need to go to CD Koans, and then of course there's a bunch of Koans in here. And this one we're looking at aboutasserts.py. So we could say vi aboutasserts.py. And, it's just text. It's not that great to interact with, in my opinion. And there are diehard Vim fans, which is what we are using now, or at least a variant of it called VI. And it's a text editor. It's a text editor. And so all programs are files of text. And so if you edit the text, you alter the program. And that's a perfectly viable option. Not my preference. I'm going to go over to, ta-da, the next thing, the next window. And this is Sublime Text. So Sublime Text is a text editor. Very simple to use. Let me kind of move it around a little bit. Very simple to use and can be very powerful. And there are other IDEs that are more powerful, I believe, that, you can have everything in them now. But I've just kind of grown up on Sublime Text, and that's what I use. I probably don't even use it that well, but that's me. All right, so just to show you how you might get this, I'll just say Sublime Text. And it's free, and you can just click into this and download it, and that's it. All right, and so then once you have it downloaded, you can just go up to File and Open. And then from there, you can go to your downloaded project and just open it up. And now, as you can see, it is all right here. And so we want, in this case, to look at the About Asserts file. Now this is the same file we were just looking at in Vim, but as you can see, it's got color. It's just a bit easier to read. And like I said, there's a lot of features built into this integrated development environment that assist in doing tasks related to programs. All right, so back to our terminal. let's just run the test again. And we're going to have to do this many times, so we need to get to where we need to be. All right, so Python 3, contemplate koans. We're going to run that again. All right, so this said we need to go into the koans about asserts file, line 17. So we're in koans, we are in about asserts.py, and we need to go to line 17. All right, so we are at this point inside of a test, and it's called test assert truth. I don't even want to get into any of this because implicitly we will learn it. And I'll do maybe in the next video a rundown on class or def or whatever. But for now, just know that each of these def lines, like on line 8 and on line 19, it just represents a test. It's a title of a test. All right, so this test assert truth. We shall contemplate truth by testing reality via asserts. Okay, so we're going to test things using asserts. All right, got it. Confused? This video should help. Do I want to play that? You know what? Why not? Let's see what they say. Let's see what they say about asserts. Bit.ly about asserts.
Okay, so now that you know how to open up the Python Koans in the terminal, I'll show you how to get started on some exercises.
This is somebody doing the exact same thing I am.
So this should be exactly what came up the first time. See, I just typed it in.
Well, I don't want to sit here for 8 minutes, but it's easy enough to explain. What are asserts? Asserts are statements that assert things. They say, this should be this. They define behavior, like this thing should do this. The checkout button should take money from the user's account. The checkout button should not take money from a user from last week's account, etc. So they make assertions. They assert that things are of different qualities or of different behaviors. The assert true method that we see here takes an argument and it says that the thing inside the parentheses needs to evaluate to true. All right. I'm going to say these statements and use these terms a billion times. So it doesn't really, I don't need to define them all. You'll understand implicitly, I think, by the end or as we go within the first few. All right. So we have a test. We have a test title, test assert truth. We have a method called assert true that takes an argument, and in this case the thing passed in is false, the word false. The assert true method asserts that the thing inside the parentheses resolves, and you'll understand what that means in the future, to true. Well, false does not resolve to true. So as the statement here says, this should be true. So I think what we'll want to do is modify this file on line 17 and change the thing inside the parentheses to what the test desires. Then we'll go back to our terminal and just press the up arrow, really, because pressing the up arrow recalls the previous command. Press enter. And now let's read what we've got. So we ran the file again here. We ran I would call this like the orchestrator, contemplate Koans.py. It's going to go and find the file you should be on and just run that, because it's going to be a lot easier than running individual files. All right, so Python 3, we just run contemplate Koans.py. And now what does it say? It says, thinking about asserts, test assert truth has expanded your awareness. So that looks like that test passed. Test assert with message has damaged your karma. Okay, we're moved on to the next one, it looks like. You have not yet reached enlightenment. Assertion error. False is not true. This should be true. Please fix this. Please meditate on the following code. Where? File, user showtop programming, Python Koans master, Koans, about asserts.py, but this time line 23. All right, so we're going to go back to our IDE called Sublime Text, and we are in the about asserts.py file, which is where we would need to be. And this time we are focused on line 23. Oh, it's a new assertion and a new test. This test, defined with that DEF signature there, is called test assert with message. Okay. Enlightenment may be more easily achieved with appropriate messages. Okay. We've got a assert true method, this time with two arguments. The first is the word false, the keyword false, and the second is a string, which is just something in quotes, typically text like this. We call that a string. This should be true. Please fix this. So given that this is called test assert with message, I'm going to assume that this string here is the message. What is this message? This should be true. Please fix this. So like with the previous test, assert true says that, hey, the thing inside the parentheses needs to resolve to true. Well, false, the keyword, is never going to resolve to true. We're going to need to update that as well. And now apparently you can also give this a message, I assume, so that if the test fails, you can help the person out that is consuming that failure so that they can more easily or better understand why the test failure occurred. So let's go back. And as you can see, that message showed up in our error. Yeah, here it is. That message to us showed up in our error, whereas previously there was no message to instruct us any further. In this case, because that message was passed into the assertion definition or the assertion method signature, it appears here in the error that it gave. Okay, so let's run contemplate Koans.py again. And now let's see where we're at. So something has changed. We're still in thinking about asserts. Test assert truth has expanded your awareness. Test assert with message has expanded your awareness. Test fill in values has damaged your karma. Assertion fill me in. Okay, so where are we at this time? We're back in the about asserts.py file, but this time we're on line 29. So let's take a look at that. Go down to line 29. Okay, so we're here inside a new test called test fill in values. Sometimes we will ask you to fill in the values. Okay, so for this, we have a new assertion method. This one is called assert.equal. I shouldn't say dot, assert equal. As you might expect, this one takes two things inside the parentheses and asserts, says, hey, I will only pass if they are equal. So I wonder what we should put here to make them equal. Well, we could probably put 2 plus 1. 2 is equal to 1 plus 1. All right, so let's try that. So let's run these again. All right, now that did work. We're on to the next test, but I want to just try something different too. How about 1 plus 1? Does 1 plus 1 equal 1 plus 1? And I want to just confirm that this test still passes, which it does. All right, so as long as the two things inside here equal one another in some way, for example, 6 minus 5, no, 6 minus 4 is equal to 1 plus 1. The tests still pass. So there's even a little lesson there. The assert equal method only cares that the two things that are passed to it evaluate to equal values. All right, they don't have to necessarily start that way. All right, I think that is going to be it for this first episode. We only made it through 3 tests, which is fine. We actually made it through a lot. And you can leave a comment if you have any issues getting things up and running. I'm happy to respond. But I hope you find this enjoyable. I think going forward, we'll kind of speed things up as we get into a rhythm and just kind of start churning through these and learning about Python. But I would just say this: you're looking at and reading Python code as we go through this, okay? So that's a big first step. It's not nearly as daunting as it maybe, at least it seemed to me, when I first started programming. And I haven't done much with Python at all, so I'm going to be learning along the way as well. All right, thanks again for joining, and have a good night.